A Dance in Fire, V7. Scene, Sylvanar, Valenwood. Date, 13 Sun's Dusk, 3E397. The banquet at the palace of the Sylvanar was well attended by every jealous bureaucrat and trader who had attempted the contract of the rebuilding of Valenwood. They looked on Deccan Scotty, Leotis Jurish, and Baths with undisguised hatred. It made Scotty very uncomfortable, but Juris delighted in it. As the servants brought in platter after platter of roasted meats, Juris himself poured a cup of jaga and toasted the clerk. "I can confess it now," said Juris. "I had grave doubts about inviting you to join me on this adventure. All the other clerks and agents of building commissions I had contacted were more outwardly aggressive, but none of them made it through, let alone to come to the audience chamber of the Sylvanar, let alone brokered the deals of their own like you did. Come, have a cup of jaga with me." "No thank you," said Scotty. "I had too much of that drug in Falinesti and nearly got sucked dry by a giant tick because of it. I'll find something else to drink." Scotty wandered about the hall until he saw some diplomats drinking mugs of a steaming brown liquid, poured from a large urn. He asked him if it was tea. "Tea? Made of leaves?" scoffed the first diplomat. "Not in Valenwood. This is rot meth." Scotty poured himself a mug and took a tentative sip. It was gamey, bitter, and sugared, and very salty. At first, it seemed very disagreeable to his palate, but a moment later he found he had drained the mug and was pouring another. His body tingled. All of the sounds in the chamber seemed oddly disjointed, but not frighteningly so. "So you're that fellow who got the Sylvanar to sign all his contracts," said the second diplomat. "That must have required some deep negotiation." Not at all. Just a little basic understanding of mercantile trading," grinned Scotty, pouring himself a third mug of rot meth. The Sylvanar was very eager to involve the Imperial State with the affairs of Valenwood. I was very eager to take a percentage of the commission. With all that blessed eagerness, it was merely a matter of putting Quill the contract, bless you. "You've been in the employ of His Imperial Majesty long?" asked the first diplomat. "It's a bite, or rather, a bit more complicated than that in the Imperial City. Between you and me, I don't really have a job. I used to work for Lord Atreus in his building commission, but I got sacked. And then the contracts from Lord Vanek and his building commission, because I got him from this fellow Reglius, who is a competitor, but still a very fine fellow, until he was made dead by the Skajiti." Scotty drained his fifth mug. "When I got back to the Imperial City, then the real negotiations can begin, bless you. I can go to my old employer, to Lord Vanek, and say, 'Look here, you. Which one of you wants these commissions?' And they'll fall over each other to take them from me. It'll be bidding war for my percentage, the likes of which no one nowhere has ever seen." "So you're not a representative of His Imperial Majesty, the Emperor?" asked the first diplomat. "Did you hear what I said? Are you stupid?" Scotty felt a surge of rage, which quickly subsided. He chuckled and poured himself a seventh mug. "So the building commissions are privately owned, but they're still representatives of the Emperor. So I'm a representative of the Emperor, or I will be, when I get these contracts in. It's very complicated. I can understand why you're not following me. Bless you, it's all like the poet said, a dance in the fire, if you follow the illusion. That is to say, illusion." "And your colleagues, are they representatives of the Emperor?" asked the second diplomat. Scotty burst into laughter, shaking his head. The diplomats made their respects and went to talk to the minister. Scotty stumbled out of the palace and reeled through the strange organic avenues and boulevards of the city. It took him several hours to find his way in Perthala Hall and his room. Once there, he slept very neatly on his bed. The next morning he woke to Juris and Baths in his room, shaking him. He felt half asleep and unable to open his eyes fully, but otherwise fine. The conversations with the diplomats floated in his mind like a haze, an obscure childhood memory. What in Mars' name is rot meth? Rancid, strongly fermented meat juices with lots of spices to kill the poison, smiled Baths. "I should have warned you to stay with Jaga." "You must understand the meat mandate by now," laughed Juris. These Bosmeri would rather eat each other than touch the fruit, the vine, or the field. What did I say to those diplomats? Cried Scotty, panicking. Nothing bad, apparently, said Juris, pulling out some papers. Your escorts are downstairs to bring you to the Imperial Province. Here are your papers and safe passage. The Sylvanar seems very impatient about business proceeding forward rapidly. He promises to send you some sort of rare treasure when the contracts are fulfilled. See, he's already giving me something. Juris showed off one of his new bejeweled earring, a beautiful large faceted ruby. Baths showed that he had a similar one. The two fat fellows left the room so Scotty could dress and pack. A full regiment of Sylvanar's guards was on the street in front of the tavern. They surrounded a carriage, crested with the official arms of Valenwood. Still dazed, Scotty climbed in, and the captain of the guard gave the signal. They began a quick gallop. Scotty shook himself and then peered behind. Baths and Juris were waving him goodbye. Wait, Scotty cried. Aren't you coming back to the Imperial Province too? The Sylvanar asked that we stay behind as Imperial representatives, yelled Leonis Juris, in case there's a need for more contracts and negotiations. He's appointed us Undrape, some sort of special honor for foreigners at the court. Don't worry, lots of banquets to attend. You can handle the negotiations with Vanek and Atreus yourself, and we'll keep things settled here. Juris continued to yell advice about business, but his voice became indistinct with distance. Soon it disappeared altogether as the convoy rounded the streets of Sylvanar. The jungle loomed suddenly, and they were in it. Scotty had only gone through it by foot or along the rivers by slow-moving boats. Now it flashed all around him in profusions of greens. The horses seemed even faster moving through the underbrush than on the smooth paths of the city. None of the weird sounds or dank smells of the jungle penetrated the escort. It felt to Scotty as if they were watching a play about a jungle with a background of quickly moving scrim, which offered only the merest suggestions of the place. So it went for 2 weeks. There was lots of food and water in the carriage with the clerk, so he merely ate and slept as the caravan pressed endlessly on. From time to time, he'd hear the sound of blades clashing, but when he looked around, whatever had attacked the caravan had long since been left behind. At last, they reached the border, where an Imperial garrison was stationed. Scotty presented the soldiers who met the carriage with the papers. They asked him a barrage of questions that he answered monosyllabically, and then they let him pass. It took several more days to arrive at the gates of the Imperial City. The horses that had flown so fast for the jungles now slowed down in the unfamiliar territory of the wooded Colovian estates. By contrast, the cries of his province's birds and smells and the province's plant life brought Decimus Scotty alive. It was as if he had been dreaming all the past months. At the gates of the city, Scotty's carriage door was open for him, and he stepped out on uncertain legs. Before he had a moment to say something to the escort, they had vanished, galloping back through the south through the forest. First thing he did now was to go home to the closest tavern and have tea and fruit and bread. If he had never eaten meat again, he told himself, that would suit him very nicely. Negotiations with Lord Atreus and Lord Vanek proceeded immediately thereafter. It was most agreeable. Both commissions recognized how lucrative the building of Valenwood would be for their agency. Lord Vanek claimed, quite justifiably, that the contracts had been written on forms notarized by his commission. He had the legal right to them. Lord Atreus claimed that Decimus Scotty was his agent and representatives, and that he had never been released from his employment. The Emperor was called to arbitrate, but he claimed to be unavailable. His advisor, the battle mage Jaegar Tharnd, had disappeared long ago and could not be called on for his wisdom and impartial mediation. Scotty lived very comfortably off the bribes from Lord Atreus and Lord Vanek. Every week, a letter would arrive from Juris or Baths asking about the state of negotiations. Gradually, these letters ceased coming, and the more urgent ones came from the Minister of Trade in Sylvanar himself. The War of the Blue Divide with Somerset Isle ended with the Altamari winning several new coastal islands from the Wood Elves. The war with Elsewhere continued, ravaging the eastern borders of Valenwood. Still, Van Eyck and Atreus fought over who would help. One fine morning in early spring of the year 398, the courier arrived at Decimus Scotty's door. Lord Van Eyck has won the Valenwood Commission and requests that you and your contracts come to his hall at your earliest convenience. As Lord Atreus decided not to challenge further, asked Scotty, he's been unable to, having died very suddenly just now from a terrible, unfortunate accident, said the courier. Scotty had wondered how long it would be before the Dark Brotherhood was brought in for final negotiations. As he walked toward Lord Van Eyck's building commission, a long, severe piece of architecture on a minor but respectable plaza, he wondered if he had played the game as he ought to have. Could Van Eyck be so rapacious as to offer him a lower percentage of the commission now that his chief competitor was dead? Thankfully, he discovered that Lord Van Eyck had already decided to pay Scotty what he proposed during the heat of the winter negotiations. His advisors had explained to him that the other, lesser building commissions might come forward unless the matter were handled quickly and fairly. Glad that we have all of the legal issues done with, said Lord Van Eyck fondly. Now we can get to the business of helping the poor Bosberry and collecting the profits. It's a pity you weren't a representative for all the troubles with the Bendermach and the Arnesian business. But there'll be plenty more wars, I'm sure of that. Scotty and Lord Van Eyck sent word to the Sylvanar that they had last prepared to honor the contracts. A few weeks later, they held a banquet in honor of the profitable enterprise. Decimus Scotty was a darling of the Imperial City, and no expense was spared to make it an unforgettable evening. Scotty met the nobles and wealthy merchants who would be benefiting from his business dealings. An exotic but somewhat faintly familiar smell rose in the ballroom. He traced it to its source, a thick, roasted slab of meat, so long and thick it covered several platters. The Cyrodiilic revelers were eating it ravenously, unable to find words to express their delight at its tastes and textures. It's nothing like I've ever had before. It's like pig-fed venison. Do you see marbling of fattened meat? It's a masterpiece. Scotty went to take a slice, but then he saw something embedded deep in the dried and rendered roast. He nearly collided with his new employer, Lord Van Eyck, as he stumbled back. Where did this come from? Scotty stammered. From my client, the Sylvanar, beamed his lordship. It's some kind of local delicacy they call unthrapa. Scotty vomited and didn't stop for some time. It cast a rather temporary pall in the evening, but when Decimus Scotty was carried off to his manor house, the guests continued to dine. The unthrapa was the delight of all, even more so when Lord Van Eyck himself took a slice and found the first 2 rubies buried within. How clever of the Bosmer to invent such a dish, the Cyrodiils agreed.